in the quiet town where death once lingered in every room. The investigators stepped into their final nightmare, unaware that this evil would claim more than just the house. It was a cold fall day in 1987. The town was small, in Connecticut. The house stood on a street with old trees. It was big, with white paint peeling off. Once, it was a funeral home. People died there, bodies prepared in the basement. Now, a family lived there. The Johnsons. They moved in because their son, Tim, was sick, cancer. The hospital was closed. Ed and Lorraine Parker were the investigators. They were like the real Warrens. Ed was strong, knew about demons. Lorraine saw things others could not, visions. This was their last case. They were old now, tired, but the church asked them to help. The Johnsons called because strange things happened at night, sounds from the basement, like whispers. Doors closed by themselves. The air smelled like old flowers, the kind from funerals. Tim saw shadows in his room, tall figures. They touched him when he slept, cold hands. Ed and Lorraine drove up in their old car. The sky was gray, rain started. Mrs. Johnson opened the door. She looked scared. Her eyes were red from crying. "Thank you for coming," she said. "It's getting worse." They went inside. The house was normal. Living room with a couch, TV, kitchen with dishes. But the air felt heavy. Lorraine stopped. She held her head. "There's something here," she said. "Old pain." "Death," Ed nodded. He carried his bag with holy water, crosses. They talked to the family. Mr. Johnson worked at a factory. He said he heard moans at night, like people in pain. Their daughter, Sarah, was 12. She said her dolls moved. Eyes followed her. They went to the basement. Stairs creaked. It was dark. Old tables where bodies lay. Hooks on walls. Lorraine touched a wall. She saw flashes. Men in suits, doing bad things to bodies, rituals, black magic, necrophilia, evil acts that woke demons. Satanic, Ed said. The past stained this place. That night, they stayed, set up in the living room. Candles, Bible. At midnight, it started. Footsteps above. No one up there. Then, a scream from Tim's room. They ran. Tim was on the bed, shaking. Marks on his arms, like scratches. It pulled me. He cried. Lorraine prayed. The room got cold. Breath showed in air. A shadow in the corner grew, tall, with horns, eyes red. It whispered names. Dead names that had splashed holy water. It hissed. The shadow backed off, but not gone, just waiting. The family slept in a hotel that night. Ed and Lorraine stayed. They knew this was big, their final fight. But the entity was strong. It wanted blood. Next morning, the rain stopped. The house looked quiet, almost normal. Ed and Lorraine sat at the kitchen table with the Johnsons, who came back from the hotel. The family looked tired. Tim's eyes were sunken, his skin pale. Sarah clutched a stuffed bear. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson held hands tightly. Ed opened his notebook. "Tell us everything," he said, "every detail." Mrs. Johnson spoke first. It started small. A month ago, things moved. A cup fell off the counter. I thought it was nothing. She paused. Then Tim got worse. He doesn't sleep. Says he sees people in his room. Tim nodded. They're tall. No faces. Just black shapes. They stand by my bed. Whisper my name. His voice shook. Lorraine watched him. She saw a shadow behind his eyes, like something stuck to him. Sarah spoke next. "My dolls, they turn their heads. At night, I hear giggles, not nice ones, like they're laughing at me." She hugged her bear tighter. Mr. Johnson said he heard footsteps in the attic, heavy ones, like boots. I checked. Nothing's there, but the air feels wrong, like someone's watching. Lorraine walked around the house. She touched walls, furniture. Every room had a feeling. Sadness, fear. The basement was worst. She saw more flashes. Men in old suits, chanting. Blood on the floor. A body that moved when it shouldn't, she told Ed quietly. This place was a gate. They opened something. Ed called the church, asked for records about the house. The priest said it was a funeral home in the 1940s, owned by a man named Harold Crane. Rumors said he did bad things. Disappeared in 1952, no one knew where. That afternoon, they set up cameras, small ones, in corners. They sprinkled holy water on doors, burned sage. The smell mixed with that old flower scent. It didn't help. At dusk, the house got cold again. Lights flickered. Sarah screamed from her room. They ran up. Her bear was on the floor, torn open. Cotton spilled out. It moved. She cried. It stood up. Ed checked the room. Nothing. But the camera caught something. A blur. Like a tall shape, gone fast. That night, Lorraine stayed with Tim. He slept, but she didn't. She prayed. At 2 a.m., the bed shook, just a little. Tim moaned in his sleep. Lorraine saw his breath in the air, cold. A whisper came from the wall. Leave. Ed was downstairs, reading the Bible. A door slammed, then another. He shouted prayers. The air got heavy, like water. Something scratched the walls, slow, loud. They met at dawn. It's testing us, Ed said. It's not done. Asterisk. The sun rose, but the house felt darker. Ed and Lorraine were tired. They hadn't slept. The Johnsons stayed in the living room, afraid to go upstairs. Tim was worse. His skin looked gray. He barely spoke, just stared at the floor. Sarah clung to her mother, whispering about bad dreams. Lorraine felt it stronger now. The evil. It came from the basement. She told Ed they needed to search it. Something's down there, she said. It's holding the demon. They went to the basement with flashlights. The air was thick, like breathing mud. Old shelves held dusty jars, tools for preparing bodies, a rusty drain in the floor. Lorraine's stomach turned. She saw more flashes. Men in robes, a circle drawn in chalk. Screams. Ed moved boxes. Behind one, he found a loose board in the wall. He pried it open. Inside was a small metal box, locked. It had strange marks carved on it, like claws. Lorraine touched it and pulled back. It's alive, she said. It's part of this. They took the box upstairs. Ed called the priest again. The priest said Harold Crane was no normal man. He studied dark books, made deals with things not human. The box might be his. Ed broke the lock with a hammer. Inside was a book, old, leather, pages yellow, words in a language they didn't know. Some pages had drawings, eyes, horns, blood. Lorraine felt sick looking at it. This is a grimoire, she said. He used it to call something. That night, they tried a blessing, sprinkled holy water on the book, read prayers. The house shook. Windows rattled. A low growl came from the walls. Tim screamed from the couch. His eyes rolled back. It sees me, he yelled. Lorraine ran to him, held his face. Fight it, she said. She saw the shadow again. Behind him, taller now. It had arms, long and thin. It reached for him. Ed threw holy water. The shadow hissed and faded. Johnson was angry. Burn that book, he shouted. Ed shook his head. That could make it worse. We need to know more. They locked the book in a suitcase with a cross on it. But the house didn't calm. At 3 a.m., the camera stopped. Just static. Then, a thud from the attic. Ed went up. Found nothing. But the attic floor had scratches, fresh ones, like nails dragged across wood. Lorraine stayed with the family. She prayed all night. The air stayed cold. The smell of old flowers grew stronger. Asterisk. The house was quiet at dawn, but it felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. Ed and Lorraine sat with a suitcase, the grimoire locked inside. They hadn't slept in days. The Johnsons were scared. Tim looked worse, his eyes dull, his hands shaking. Sarah wouldn't let go of her mother. Mr. Johnson paced, muttering about leaving. Lorraine had a vision in the night. She saw Harold Crane, a tall man with hollow eyes, standing in the basement. He held the grimoire, chanting. A shadow rose from the floor, laughing. It wasn't human. She told Ed, "This thing was invited here. It won't leave easy." Ed decided to try a binding ritual, something to weaken the entity. They needed to know more about Crane. He called the priest again. The priest found old letters in the church records. Crane wrote about opening doors to eternal power. He mentioned a name, Asmodeus, a demon. Ed's face went pale. "This is bad," he said. They set up in the living room, candles. In a circle, crosses on the walls. The family stayed close, watching. Ed read from the Bible. Lorraine sprinkled salt. They chanted prayers to bind the entity. The air got heavy. The candles flickered. Then, chaos. The suitcase shook. The grimoire inside thumped, like it was alive. Tim screamed, clutching his chest. Red marks appeared on his neck, like burns. Sarah cried out, pointing at the ceiling. Footprints appeared, black and wet, walking across it. Lorraine shouted, "Stop." She saw the shadow again. It was clearer now, tall, with horns and claws. Its eyes glowed red. It spoke in a low voice. "Mine." Ed threw holy water. But the shadow laughed. The candles went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Mr. Johnson grabbed a flashlight. It flickered, then died. The smell of old flowers was choking now. Something scratched the walls, fast and loud. Sarah sobbed. Mrs. Johnson prayed. Tim fell to the floor, gasping. Lorraine knelt by him. His eyes were black, no white left. Ed shouted Latin words. The shadow roared, the windows cracked. Then, silence. The shadow was gone. But Tim wasn't better. He whispered, "It's inside me." They stopped the ritual. It failed. The entity was stronger now. Ed locked the suitcase in the car. "We can't touch the book again," he said. At midnight, the house groaned, like wood bending. Lorraine saw something new in her vision. Crane's body, buried under the basement floor, not dead. Moving. The days blurred together. The house seemed to pulse now, like it had a heartbeat. Ed and Lorraine were exhausted, their faces lined with worry. The Johnsons were breaking. Tim hadn't eaten in 2 days. He sat on the couch, rocking back and forth. His eyes were wrong, dark circles, pupils too big. Sarah hid under a blanket, whispering to herself. Mrs. Johnson cried quietly. Mr. Johnson stared at the door, wanting to run. Lorraine's vision haunted her. Crane's body under the floor, moving. She told Ed, "We have to dig. It's tied to him." Ed nodded. They couldn't wait for the priest anymore. He was coming tomorrow. But time was short. They went to the basement with shovels from the garage. The air was colder than ever. The smell of earth and decay mixed with the flowers. Ed started digging at the spot Lorraine pointed to. The concrete floor was old, cracked. He broke through. Dirt underneath, soft as he dug. The lights flickered. A whisper started. Names. Dead names. Lorraine held a cross, praying. The family stayed upstairs, but they heard the sounds, thuds, scrapes. Ed hit something. Wood. A coffin? No, just bones. A skeleton, wrapped in old cloth. The skull grinned up at them. Lorraine gasped, "That's Crane." She saw flashes. Crane, killing himself after the ritual. But the demon kept him, not alive, not dead. They pulled the bones out, laid them on the floor. Ed sprinkled holy water. The bones shook. A crack appeared in one. Black smoke leaked out. The whisper turned to a scream. Upstairs, Tim howled. They ran up. Tim was on the floor, twisting. His body bent wrong, arms backward, voice not his. "You can't have me," it said, deep, like gravel. Eyes all black now, foam at his mouth. Sarah screamed. Mrs. Johnson fainted. Lorraine held Tim's head. "In the name of God, leave this boy." The entity laughed through him. "He's mine." Like Crane. Ed read from the Bible. The room shook. Pictures fell off walls. Glass broke. Mr. Johnson helped drag Tim to the center. They tied him with ropes, gentle but firm. The entity fought. Tim's skin ripped open. Blood welled up. No cuts, just tears. Lorraine saw the shadow over him. Full form now. Demon Asmodeus. Horns curled, skin like leather. Claws dripping. They prayed harder. Hours passed. Tim calmed a little. Eyes cleared some, but weak. It hurts, he whispered. The bones downstairs stopped shaking. But the house groaned louder. Walls creaked dotted night. The priest arrived. Father Hayes, old like them. He saw the bones. The boy, this is possession. He said, we need the rite. They prepared for exorcism tomorrow. But the entity knew. Whispers all night. Death comes. Asterisk, the morning light filtered through the cracked windows. But it did little to chase away the gloom. The house felt alive now. Walls breathing, floors shifting slightly underfoot. Father Hayes prepared the room. He laid out his tools on a table. A crucifix, holy oil, a book of rites. Ed and Lorraine stood by, their faces drawn from lack of sleep. The Johnsons huddled in the corner. Tim was tied to a chair in the center, his body limp, head hanging. His skin was clammy, marked with bruises that appeared overnight. Sarah whispered prayers with her mother. Mr. Johnson looked ready to break. Father Hayes began, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He anointed Tim's forehead with oil. Tim's head snapped up. His eyes were black voids. A grin spread across his face. Not Tim's smile. You're too late, the voice said, deep, echoing. Lorraine held her cross tight. She saw the demon fully now. Asmodeus, towering over Tim. Its form twisting like smoke and flesh, claws dug into the boy's shoulders. Invisible to others, but clear to her. Ed read from the Bible. His voice steady but tired. The exorcism dragged on. Hours. Tim's body convulsed. He spat words in Latin. Curses. The room grew freezing. Breath fogged. The air. Objects flew, books, lamps crashing against walls. Sarah screamed as a chair lifted, then dropped. Mrs. Johnson fainted again. Mr. Johnson held her. Tears streaming. Father Hayes pressed on. I command you, unclean spirit, to leave this servant of God. Tim laughed, a sound like breaking bones. His body levitated, chair and all, rising a foot off the floor. Lorraine gasped. It's fighting hard. Ed splashed holy water. The skin on Tim's arms bubbled like burns. The demon spoke through him. This house is mine. Crane opened the door. I took him, now the boy. Visions flashed in Lorraine's mind. Crane's rituals, blood sacrifices in the basement, calling Asmodeus for power over death. But it backfired. The demon consumed him, waited for new victims. Tim's illness made him weak, easy prey. They broke for a moment. Tim slumped, whispering, help me. But then it surged again. The smell shifted, from flowers to rotting meat, choking everyone. Scratches appeared on the walls. Deep gouges. A shadow moved across the ceiling, dripping black ooze. Night fell. The exorcism continued. Father Hayes' voice grew hoarse. Ed and Lorraine joined in, chanting. The house shook violently, like an earthquake. Windows shattered. Wind howled inside. The demon roared. No. Tim's body arched, then collapsed. The shadow shrank, pulling back into the floor. Black smoke rose from the bones in the basement, then vanished. Silence. Tim breathed normally. His eyes cleared. It's gone, he said weakly. The family rushed to him, hugging. Father Hayes blessed the house. They burned the grimoire and Crane's bones outside. Under the stars, the fire burned bright. No strange smells. Ed and Lorraine left at dawn. This was their last case. They were done. The evil was banished, but it took a toll. Tim would recover, but scars remain. The house stood quiet now, empty. The Johnsons moved out soon after. No more whispers, no more shadows. But in quiet moments, Lorraine wondered if it was truly over. Demons never forget.